If you've never tried fried pickles, then you're in for a real treat. And if you have, then you know exactly what I mean. They are crunchy, a little bit salty, and oh so delicious. But I'm not gonna deep fry them today. We're gonna use an air fryer and we're gonna air fry them, and they are absolutely fantastic. Welcome to the Salt and Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today we're gonna make air fryer fried pickles. I'm choosing to make them into chips. So I have cut pickles into about 1/4 inch thickness, and that's how I'm gonna do it. But you can also use the same technique and make air fryer fried pickle spears if you prefer. So that's totally up to you. You can also make them keto, which I have tested a recipe for keto air fryer fried pickles, and I'm gonna include that on my written post on my website. But today I'm gonna show you the original version. The first thing to consider is the type of pickle that you choose. What I recommend is getting a nice size dill pickle that is probably about, 5 or 6 inches in length and about, I would say, quarter size in diameter. And that might seem like, oh, well, I'll just go pick up any kind of random pickle at the grocery store. But what I found is that it's better if you get a more upscale or gourmet brand of pickle, because some of them that are sold on the grocery store shelves are a little mushy. And after you air fry them, they're really soft. They don't give you that crisp pickle bite that you really want in an air fryer fried pickle. So definitely spend a little extra money, get a higher end kind of pickle, and you will have a better result. All right, so we already have one pickle cut up here, so I'm just gonna show you real quick how I cut this up. It's super easy. I take the ends off, just start with one, and then I just take my knife and slice in 1/4 inch pieces there. Try to make them as even as you can so that they cook evenly after you batter them. Then the next thing we want to do is get them into some flour, and that is going to coat the pickle because the pickles are really wet, all throughout. So if we didn't toss them in flour first, they would end up being really soggy when we put our breadcrumb coating on the outside. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. I have a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour here, and I'll just shake that around. You could use a baggie, of course, as well. Then I'm gonna plop my pickles right in here and just toss them around a little bit in the flour until they are lightly coated. You could use a fork to do this, tongs, plastic bag, like I said, whatever works. Just get a nice light coating all over the pickle. All right, that looks good. All of them are lightly coated with the flour. I'm gonna set those aside for right now. And then the next thing we wanna do is get our wet batter made up. Now you can use beer, you can use water, you could use apple juice, you could use whatever you want as the liquid, but you want 1/2 of a cup of it. I'm using a light beer here, so I'm gonna pour that in. To that, you wanna add 1 lightly beaten egg. This is a large egg, so I'm gonna add that in. Then you can kind of whip that up a little bit, just like that. Now the next thing that I add in is 1 tablespoon of mustard. Any kind of mustard that you like will work perfectly fine. It really pairs nicely with the pickle. What Jeff and I love is a Cuban style mustard that we get from Walmart. And if you haven't tried it, check it out, it's really good. All right, so let's put that in. And just sort of mix that up. All right, once that's mixed in, then we are gonna add in our flour. Now, I really like to sift in the flour because the finer it goes in, the easier it is to combine, okay? 3/4 of a cup of flour here, but I'm gonna go by the texture more than the amount of flour. Most of the time I use all 3/4 of a cup, but sometimes it won't need as much. So just go by the way it looks. So just sift it all over the top here. And I should mention that I start off with cold ingredients. I really find that everything will mix together easier for you. You won't have to work so hard at it, and you won't develop the gluten as much in the flour, which the gluten makes the mixture a little gummy, and it can be a little thick when you go to air fry, so we don't want that. So use cold ingredients, and then just fold in the flour. Just gently fold it in. Sometimes I use chopsticks to do this, or a fork works just as well. Let's just fold it in, and when you can no longer see flour, then you sift in another little bit over the top and repeat this process, which I'm gonna do now, and then I will show you what the finished texture should be. I don't know if texture is the right word. Consistency, since it's a wet batter, consistency is a better word to use. All right, that looks good. After adding in that last sifting of flour, my batter got thick really quick, and I still have about 2 tablespoons left of the 3/4 of a cup. So what that's telling me is I don't need to add any more, and in fact, it's a little too thick. So if it's thick like this, that is not the consistency that you want. So grab some more water or a little bit more beer, add in 1 tablespoon at a time until we get to the consistency that I'm about to show you. Close, not quite. 1 more tablespoon. That should do the trick. So it really is about consistency and not the amount of ingredients, but the ingredients will be listed out as 3/4 of a cup to give you a guideline. You want it to be the consistency so that it just drips right off the fork like that, okay? So it's not clumpy, it's not real thick, it's not super thin. That is going to coat those pickles perfectly and provide the binder that we need to keep the breadcrumbs on while we air fry. All right, next up, so that's done. Next up is our breadcrumb mixture. Now I'm gonna use a simple seasoning for this. You can use any type of seasoning you want. The one thing that I will caution is to use a very tiny amount of salt if you use any, because the pickles already are salty. If you add too much salt here to this breading mixture, they will just be overpoweringly taste like salt, and it won't be very pleasant. So I'm only using 1/4 teaspoon of salt in this 1 cup of breadcrumbs. Then I have 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika. Now that smoked paprika is totally optional. You can either substitute it for regular paprika or you can leave it out altogether. It's not gonna make any difference. But the smoked paprika gives that little extra special flavor that I just love about these air fryer fried pickles. So dump those into your 1 cup of breadcrumbs, and then I'm just going to mix this up a little bit so that all of the spices disperse throughout the breadcrumbs. Now next up is doing the dipping, which, as you can probably figure, it's gonna be a 3-step process. The flour we already did, then we go into the wet batter, and then into the breadcrumbs. Now, I've tried this with panko and breadcrumbs. I've tried this with all panko. My favorite way is all breadcrumbs. That is how I prefer it. You can certainly play around with combining panko breadcrumbs and the fine breadcrumbs. That's perfectly fine, but I really liked the texture the best with just breadcrumbs. All right, so I'm gonna take the floured pickles and put them into the wet mixture. I'm just gonna do a few here, and then I will do the rest of them off camera. After you finish breading them, you do want to put them onto some sort of a plate or something that's lined with parchment, or what I'm going to do is use my cooling rack. All right, so then just cover the pickle in the wet mixture here, and then take it up and let that excess fall off. Tap your fork a little bit. We don't want too much on there. We just want a nice light coating to bind our breadcrumbs. And then flip it over if you need to use another utensil to kind of pull it off, that's fine. And then brush over the breadcrumbs and just leave it there for a minute. Okay, so I leave them in there so that it really can set up, and I move on and do the next one. All right, so let's go back and get this first one out now. I'm gonna do that with a fork so more of the breading can fall off, and then just place it right on there. All right, let's grab this fork. There we go. There is one of our pickles. And of course you repeat this for all of them that you want to do, which you can do as few or as many as you want. Another thing you can do is take your pickles to this point. You can put them on a parchment-lined tray, pop them in the freezer, let them individually freeze, then throw them in a bag, and then you can pop them out and air fry them. You can even coat them in a little bit of oil, like spritz them with some oil before you freeze them. And that helps a little bit with preventing ice crystals. And also then you don't have to add the oil when you go to air fry. They're already gonna be oiled for you. All right, so that's the same process that I'm going to repeat for all of the pickles. And it's gonna take me about 10 minutes or so. So right now, I'm gonna get my air fryer, which is the Ninja Foodi Indoor Grill in this instance, preheated. I really recommend that you preheat your air fryer anytime you're cooking something that is breaded, because it is gonna help the breading set up quicker, and we're only air frying for 5 minutes. So we really want that breading to get into a super hot environment so that it can start to crisp up immediately. So what I'm using is the grill. And I don't always use the grill, you know, even though it's a terrific air fryer, I don't do a lot of videos with it. My go-to is the Ninja Foodi pressure cooker and air crisper. But you can fit more of these little pickles in the grill than you can in the Ninja Foodi, and that's the reason why I decided to use the grill today. However, you can use the Ninja Foodi pressure cooker and air crisper exactly the same way. You just won't be able to fit as many pickles in there because you do need to keep them in a single layer. That's very important. Or they'll just stick together and they'll be gummy and they won't be delicious. All right, now we're gonna turn the grill on, and I'm gonna preheat like I do in the Ninja Foodi pressure cooker and air crisper. So I'm gonna leave the basket in, and I encourage you to do that with whatever air fryer you're using, because that's the cooking surface, and that needs to be hot as well as the entire grill for that immediate cook to start. So I'm gonna go ahead and go on broil here, and 10 minutes is what I want, and hit start. Meanwhile, I will get the rest of these pickles breaded up onto our tray, and then we will get to air frying. All right, there we go. Now, it took me a little bit longer than 10 minutes, so I did add another couple minutes on there, but we're running down the time now. I can start air frying at any point. So if you're breading your pickles and your air fryer is preheated and you know you're gonna have to do them in stages, stop breading, get them in, and start the cooking process so you can make things go a little bit quicker. I also wanted to point out that there is plenty of this wet batter left over. So you could do another pickle or two using this. There's also a good amount of the breading left, but it's getting low enough that it's going to be probably a little bit cumbersome to keep breading new pickles. So I would add a little bit of new breading in there mixed with the seasonings. And it would be perfectly fine to do another full pickle. But after that, you're going to notice that it gets just a little bit too chunky with all of these little pieces here. These are pieces of the wet batter, and they are good when they're on the pickle because they add extra crispiness, but when it gets too much, then it's kind of gloppy on the pickle and doesn't give you the best experience. So if it gets really like heavy crumbs, I guess, like big crumbs, start over, dump it and start over with some fresh breading. But you can definitely do 2 full pickles with this, and plus probably another one. All right, so now the pickles, they're all on here. So what I'm gonna do is put them in a single layer on the grill. We're gonna air fry at 400 for 5 minutes. And I do flip around minute 4, or at least I check them around minute 4, but it's totally optional. You don't absolutely have to do that. I'm also going to spritz with avocado oil. You can use whatever kind of oil you want to use. Don't recommend olive oil just because of the flavors, and they don't recommend it with the grill because it can produce some more smoke, although I've used it on lower heat settings and it's perfectly fine, and 400 degrees would be perfectly fine, but it's not going to be the best flavor for your pickles. So stick with a neutral flavored oil like avocado. All right, let's go ahead and get these on. So what I like to do first is just spritz the basket a little bit. Just give it like 2 spritzes there. And then we will line these little babies up. Now that one I just coated. Now that's actually probably good for you guys to see. So it didn't sit very long. I just finished this one, but some of these other ones that have sat, they're much easier to handle. So I'm gonna leave that one right there for a minute. Then we're just gonna throw these in here and then do another light spritz of your oil here. That is probably about a teaspoon. Even though it seems like I'm doing it a lot, those sprayers do not put out a lot of oil. Okay, and now we're gonna go over to the air crisp function. We wanna take our temperature to 400 and our time down to 5 minutes. And I'll check them at 4 minutes. All right, so guess what happened? I had the lid open so long that the heat escaped, and so I didn't realize it because I can't see the screen. When I closed it, it didn't actually start. It was preheating, and I should have realized that, and I didn't. So now it's been cooking, basically, for a few minutes. Now it says add food. So we're gonna have to cut that time down, but that is only because of my mistake. But they're looking really, really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and let it go the 5 minutes that I programmed. I estimate that it's been cooking about 2 minutes on the preheat. So now that we're fully up to that, I'm gonna let it go another 2 minutes, and then I'll take a look and we'll flip them and we'll make some decisions. So one thing I do wanna go over though is if you have that happen to you, you can bypass the preheat, and to do that, you just hit the preheat on this model of grill. When it comes up, you hit it, it'll then immediately go to add food, open the lid and close it again, and it'll start your 5-minute countdown. But because your temperature inside is not quite up to that 400 degrees, you may have to add a minute or so onto your pickles. But go by the way that the outside looks, because that's all that matters. I mean, the pickles are the pickles. They're gonna be fine. So it's just about the outside. Is it crunchy? Is it brown? Is it like you like it? And if it is, they're done. So take them out, okay? But we'll give it another minute here, and then I'll take a peek and we'll give them a little flip. All right, let's go ahead and open and take a peek here. They look really good. So now let's see about the other side. Oh my gosh, yeah, they look good. So I would say that they're pretty much already done. But what I'm gonna do is flip a few more over. Wow, look at this. I mean, look at how quick these cook. I think it's amazing. But you can also see that the bottom has it's light, much lighter in color. So I'm gonna try to flip as many of them over as I can, as quickly as I can. And I'm gonna spritz them with a little bit of oil. And we're gonna go I'm gonna go another minute. That's good enough. I'm not being very efficient here. That's fine. All right, we're just gonna go ahead and spritz where I can see some light coloring there. And we're gonna go another minute. And then I'm pretty sure they're gonna be done. I could probably even go 2 more minutes. I don't think they're gonna burn or anything, but let's check them in a minute and see. Meanwhile, I'm gonna make up a little bit of sauce, which is just a dipping sauce that I like, and it's super easy to make. 1 part mayonnaise, 2 parts mustard. You can add in a little bit of honey or a little bit of spice. Like I'm gonna add in a little bit of Cholula to mine, and it's gonna be delicious. So 1 part mayonnaise, 2 parts mustard, so this is 1 tablespoon. So I'm gonna put in 2 tablespoons of this mustard, and then a few dashes of Cholula hot sauce, and that'll be my dipping sauce. Maybe a few more than a few, but you know, who's counting? If you don't like spice, obviously, don't use it. And this is a little on the spicy side too. So if you don't like spice, don't even try it. You won't like it. And if you want a sweet dipping sauce, I recommend 2 parts mayonnaise, 1 part mustard, and a little bit of honey. I use that dipping sauce with my sausage ball recipe, so you can find it on my website, and it's really good. It's really good dipping sauce. A little sweet, and ooh, it's really good. All right, ooh, I might have let this time get away from me. All right, they look really good. I think we're done, guys. So our pickles are done. Now I like to put them on some sort of a tray or in a basket that will allow them to cool and circulate air so they don't get soggy. You know, we want them nice and crispy. But they look really good. There's some that probably could have gone a little bit longer, so use your judgment. Take out the ones that you think are done and leave the other ones in a little bit longer. I'm gonna take this one out because I want to talk about it. So I can see like a lot of areas that are kind of lighter, and that's just because it didn't get as much oil on it. So the breadcrumbs themselves did not crisp up as much, but it's still perfectly fine. In fact, I'm gonna taste that one. And then we've got other ones that are just perfectly coated with the oil. Look at that. So a little bit of prep involved, really quick air frying, and they're delicious as a snack. And definitely check out the website for the keto version if that's what you're interested in. All right, here we go. First, I will try it without any dipping sauce. Oh my gosh. They are so good. And the pickle is still nice and firm. And that's what I really like. All right. And they're so crunchy. And the pickle's hot. Oh my gosh, these are so good. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the keto version are just as good. In fact, Jeff likes those a little bit more. And then I'll take the remaining and put them on my parchment line tray, and I'll let these freeze in the freezer. Then I'll transfer them after they're individually frozen to a freezer bag, and I'll just leave them in the freezer until I want to make some more air fryer pickles for, you know, a party or some friends came over or we just want a snack. And they take just 5 minutes to air fry, so they're super easy to make and super quick. Try different dipping sauces with them, and please let me know, what do you dip your air fryer fried pickles in? As always, make it yours, make it delicious, and keep it real.